Hello, hello. Welcome to Dwight's Dojo. Today I'm going to give an introduction to Excel geared towards someone who has never used it before. So this will be a very beginner's tutorial on using Excel if you don't know what you're doing and you've never used it before. Today we are going to touch on these 10 items here. Going to walk through each of them, and that should start to give you a good sort of overview of how to get started in Excel, and sort of paint the picture on why it's one of Microsoft's best programs and how it can be super useful. So let's get started. So first off, when you open Excel, you'll come to a clean sheet. Essentially, it'll look like this. Okay, you'll have all these rectangles. These are called cells. At the top, you'll have letters, and those identify what are known as columns. And vertically, you'll have rows, and those will be numbered. There is a lot of them. Goes very far. So I don't think I've ever used up all of them. But anyway, so when you're inside one of these white frames, is called a sheet. So I created this new one, sheet 5 down here. You can add a lot of sheets if you want, but let's work within this one here, sheet 2. So anyway, to get started, Excel is all about data, both presenting it, analyzing it, modifying it, adding it, multiplying it, dividing it, doing all sorts of different functions to it. It's like a gigantic calculator on steroids. But the basic, easiest thing is just, you can start typing anywhere you want. I could put some letters in here. You can use the arrows to, move around. I can just use the arrows to move around and not do anything. But I could drop a number in here, and that is very basic. Just as well, Excel's often got 2 different ways of doing almost everything. So I could also just click this cell, and I can go up to here. This is called the formula bar. And I could just as well type a 2 in there and hit enter. I could also type in a 4, and I could hit tab, and that'll move to the right. So directionally, you're either going to use enter to go down or tab to go to the right. And I believe if you use shift enter, it goes the opposite direction, and shift tab would go the opposite direction as well. But you could just as well use the arrows. Enter and tab become necessary if you start typing formulas into the formula bar. But when you're just moving around, arrows work just fine. So let me delete by selecting and then clicking or just typing delete. Okay, so that's item 1, just getting some data in there. Just as well, we won't get into formulas today, but I could also just as well put in a bunch of 4s and maybe a 6. And maybe I want a very basic formula, add those all up. I could either hit equals, and I could manually select and then hit plus and select and hit plus. And that's very slow. Hit enter. 48's our total. Or I could just as easily delete that, and there's a wonderful little auto sum button up here. If you go to the bottom of a range of data and hit that, it's going to automatically intelligently select your data. Hit enter, same difference. Delete that, and if you don't need the auto sum button, you could just as well hit equals. You could type the word sum, parentheses, and left click your first cell, push and hold shift, and then select the last cell. And you don't even have to close the parentheses, you can just hit enter. 48. So there's a lot of different ways to do all the same thing. Today we're not going to really talk about formulas, but just wanted to give you one example. So that's our first point. Item 2, how to copy and paste. So often you're working with a lot of data in Excel. Almost every time I'm in there, there's reasons to copy and paste to save time. So maybe I've got this row of data. I'm going to often use the shortcut for copy, which is Control C. But if you're not ready for that, you could select your data with the left mouse and then right click anywhere in that range. And just as easy, you can hit copy. You'll know it worked because the dialog box will be around it, sort of moving. And maybe I want to paste that over here. So I can right click in this cell and I can just paste. Or I could undo that. So this is your undo button, it's back arrow. And redo is this arrow. So you can quickly undo or fix anything you mess up. So in this case, maybe I select this data and then I use the shortcut Control C, and maybe I put it right here, and the shortcut for paste is Control V. A V like Victor. So that's that. Now you've also got a lot of options for pasting. So you don't have a lot of options for copying. Basically, copying is copying. It's always the same. But pasting, got some options. So let's look at some of those. So maybe we add some formulas in here. So, okay, so we got one here. Let's do another one maybe here. So I'm going to overwrite this text with a equal sign. And I'm just going to say this cell, and I'm going to use the multiplication sign times 20. I'm going to hit enter. Didn't like that. So we'll get to that in a minute. But essentially, all the data in Excel, you can classify what type of data it is. So in this case, it's telling me that cell's been formatted as text. So real quick, we can go up here. We can say general. Let's redo this formula. Just click in there and hit enter again. Now it works. All right, so back to different options for pasting. So now I've got this row, and so you can see in the formula bar there's a formula in there. It's adding up some of these other cells. So if I wanted to copy this cell, and maybe I want to paste over here, and you can go to paste special. Now you've got some choices. In this case, maybe I don't want it to copy that formula. I just want it to copy the numbers that we see, the letters and numbers we see. That would be values only. Hit OK. And instead of having any kind of formula in this cell, we're going to click it, and it's just going to say 111, just like that one. And it's this one that had a formula in it. No formula over here, just the raw 136. Big formula in here. M6 times M7, 2,220 is the result. This one, just the result. See that up here? We can just as easily undo that paste. And maybe this whole chunk here is blue. So your other option, you could copy, maybe just copy this part. Control C, shortcut. And let's paste it here, right click, paste special. And this time, maybe we just want the formatting. So that blue color and those borders. Okay, no data, just the formatting. Now there's a shortcut that'll let us do that even quicker. Grab this, and then if you select your data and you go to this paintbrush called Format Painter, click it, left click, and then left click where you want it to paste your format. See that? Let's delete this. Could also just undo it, but let's delete it. Okay, let's talk about moving your data. So maybe you need to add something in here. So you want this whole section to move down. Select it with the left mouse button, right click here, insert. And then it'll choose whether maybe you want to move your data to the right or maybe you want it to move down. Let's move it down. Okay. In this case, maybe we want to move this to the right. Doesn't look good, but we've got choices. Undo that, undo that. Now you can also do something really cool. Maybe all this is in the wrong spot. Select it with the left mouse, go over to the border, see how it's got the 4-way arrow. If you click your left mouse button and hold it, you can move this anywhere you want. You could do the same with this chunk. Okay. Maybe just these. And you can just undo all that. So cool. Okay, so that's that. So that's item 4. Item 5, merging 2 cells into one. Why would we want to do that? So I don't know, maybe this section and this section maybe wants a label to describe it better. Okay, so maybe this is our label. So you select your 2 cells that you want to combine, and your shortcut is merge and center. Click that. Oh, look at that. So now all of a sudden you've got this data, and you've got this nice heading for it. Same thing here. This should describe these 2 columns. They're like related or something. Boom, merge and center. Give that another green. And maybe this wants to be a different color. So there you go. So yeah, if you're working with data, sometimes you need a heading that's gonna, I don't know, this could be like patient name. This could be first and last. And then this could be Dave Robinson. Should probably capitalize those, but I think you get the point. Yeah. Anyway, let's undo all that. Okay. Now, let's talk about some colors. So we've sort of done some of that. But maybe we want all of our text to stand out a little better. Maybe white. So this box here changes the color of our text. Now, I said Excel allows you to do a lot of things different ways. So let's talk about formatting. So basically, if I select all this data, you can select whatever data you want. You right click, very powerful tool, format cells. In here, you got a lot of options. So you could choose what type of data you have. General is, as it sounds, very general. So it could be letters, words, numbers. Excel will do its best to interpret. Or you could strictly say it's, I don't know, maybe it's all dollar values. I work in manufacturing, so oftentimes talking about piece price, go to 3 decimals sometimes. And you can choose to have a dollar sign or not. Let's see what that looks like. So now your numbers have 3 decimals. Your words and letters aren't affected. Again, so format cells. Maybe these are all dates. You got a lot of different options you can pick in there. Numbers, very basic. There you're choosing your decimal places and whether or not you have a thousands separator. So let's keep it general. Alignment sometimes comes in handy. Maybe you're making a chart and your data is not quite fitting. You might rotate it 45 degrees. I don't generally do that. I don't like it because I think it's harder to read, especially if people go vertical. I don't think that presents as well. I think you're better off just making the words smaller. So let's put it back to normal. Merge cells, we kind of showed you with the merge and center. You can also use it here. Another cool option is shrink to fit. Let me show you. So capture, it's one of our bigger words. So let's say I want to specifically choose a column width. Okay. Well, maybe our word's even bigger. Captured bison. I don't know what that means, but whatever. Okay, so we could right click, format cells, shrink to fit. And that's going to make my text smaller depending on the size of this column. See that? So it's the only one that shrunk because it's the biggest word. The others would shrink if I went smaller. Start to, anyway. Very small. So let's undo that. Let's go back in here and keep showing you some things. So we're gonna do that. Maybe we got a sentence or something. Maybe we need a much greater amount of data. If you click wrap text, now all of a sudden, as you make a bigger string of text, it's going to start to literally wrap the word. Let me show you. Captured bison nested under the car. Now all of a sudden it's underneath. So now your cell is larger vertically. You can adjust the column width. You could double click here and it'll shrink. Okay, that's a neat trick. You can always double click and it'll size it back to the minimum. Let's get rid of that. Double left click. Okay. What else? Format cells. Okay, so you can also use these tools to do pretty much the same thing as these guys, which is like Microsoft Word. You can move your text to the left of the cell, the right of the cell, the center, and you can also control if it's at the top, the bottom, or the middle. Okay, font, you've got a lot of options in here. You can also do a lot of quick shortcuts up here. Your font type, you've got your extra styles for italic, bold, underline. Your size, you can make these smaller or bigger. Okay, you could add strike through if maybe you're doing a checklist. So those are all checked off theoretically now. Yeah, that's mostly what I would use in there. Borders becomes super helpful when you're trying to keep things clean. I can undo them all. So now you just have some data. Redo them by undoing them. But you've got choices when it comes to your borders. You can completely customize. Maybe you just want the center. So now there's no perimeter around it. Okay, so that's that. You can choose colors for your border too. And then fill is basically the same as this background option here, but you've got more choices for customizing the color. Okay, so that's number 7. Number 8, using the control plus an arrow. As you start to have large data sets, like this could be, I can copy this with this little drag icon here. So now all of a sudden I've got a lot of data that I just sort of copied down, but I don't like scrolling up and down very much. So I can use control, and then I can also, so I can click and hold control and then push one of the arrow directions. So control down gets you to the bottom of your data, goes to the last result. Control right, control left, control up. I think that's a really helpful shortcut as you start to have large files. Number 9, the grid lines. So maybe you noticed all these rectangles have little light bluish or grayish lines around them. Sometimes if you're making a presentation, maybe you don't want those. Now they don't print unless you add an actual border. See the black border? That'll print. These don't print. But maybe you don't want them there. So if you go to View, uncheck grid lines, and they're gone. Don't have to select anything. You just click to add them right back in. Number 10. So this has a lot to do with printing. So maybe, I don't know, maybe you want to put your data on one page. Let me delete a bunch of this. So maybe you want to put your data on one page. So maybe sheet 5. There we go. Copy and pasted. Let's make sure that, there we go. Just doing some formatting. But anyway, maybe you want to move this over to the left and down a little. Yeah, it looks kind of stupid, doesn't it? So we're still going to adjust the file or the column width. Okay. Maybe we want all these column widths to be the same. So we'd select these columns, we'd right click on them, we'd go to column width. Maybe we make them 18. See what that does. Okay, that's fine. And we still really want to print on one page, so we start to center and optimize the space. But now we really want to see if this can fit on one page. So I'm going to go to View. No, that's not right. You go to Page Layout, sorry. And then you go to this little guy here to get yourself all the options. And now you can print either portrait mode or landscape. See how the pages are different? And this is what I love. So you can go to fit to 1 page wide by 1 tall. So that's essentially putting all your data on one page. And it'll size your data accordingly to make it work. Take a look here to print preview. There we go. So maybe we want to make our margins narrow. Try to get more data on the same page. So anyway, but that's about it. I just kind of wanted to show you these 10 items. I'll get into more detail and do some more advanced stuff in the future. But this was lesson 1, sort of just a beginner's guide to Excel. It's not scary. It's easy to use, very, very user-friendly, and very powerful once you get the hang of it. So anyway, so on behalf of Dwight's Dojo, I thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll start making the next lesson. So take care.